I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here I am. Life has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs, and mine came after 12 years of what I thought was a perfect marriage. I'm a history teacher at a local high school. Nothing fancy, just an ordinary guy who loves his job and used to love his family life. I met my wife at a friend's wedding where my mom kept insisting I talk to her. Back then, I was focused on finishing my master's degree and wasn't interested in dating. But there was something about her that drew me in. Maybe it was her infectious laugh, or how she could light up a room just by walking in. We dated for 8 months before getting married. She was finishing her pharmacy degree at the time. Our parents were thrilled about the match, and honestly, everything felt right. We had 2 daughters over the years, and life was good. She opened her own pharmacy, and I continued teaching. We had our routine, our inside jokes, and what I thought was a solid foundation. But things started changing about 2 months ago. It began with small things. She started coming home late from work, which wasn't usual for her. One day, I called her pharmacy because she wasn't answering her phone, and her assistant told me she hadn't been in all day. When she came home that night, she claimed she'd been swamped with customers. The lie hit me hard. In 12 years, she'd never lied to me before. I noticed other changes too. She was always on her phone, smiling at messages, quickly hiding the screen when I walked by. One evening, while helping our younger daughter with homework, she was so distracted by her phone that she nearly knocked over a hot cup of tea on our child's lap. I raised my voice for the first time in our marriage, and the look she gave me wasn't of remorse but annoyance. When I tried talking to her about it, she brushed it off, saying she'd reconnected with an old friend. She didn't mention that she'd skipped work to meet this friend, or that she'd started drinking, something she'd never done before. I found wine bottles hidden in her car. One night, I couldn't sleep and overheard her on the phone in our backyard. "This marriage is suffocating me," she was saying. "He's so predictable. Same routine, same everything. I need excitement in my life." Those words felt like punches to my gut. Was I really that boring? Had I failed as a husband? My friend Tony, who I've known since college, suggested I take a few days off work to figure out what was really going on. I did just that. The next day, when my wife said she had a pharmacy inspection, I followed her. She drove to a coffee shop across town and met a man. They hugged for too long, and he kissed her cheek. I took pictures, feeling sick to my stomach. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. I checked her phone one night while she slept, something I'd never done before. The password was our anniversary date, and what I found destroyed me. Messages, pictures, and plans with a guy named Chris. Turns out he was her college boyfriend, now a successful realtor. They'd run into each other at a pharmacy convention, but the real shock came when I confronted her. She admitted that she'd only married me because her father had threatened to give the pharmacy to her younger sister if she didn't marry someone respectable. Chris had been unemployed back then, so she chose me, the safe option, the stable choice. She'd met him again at the convention, and old feelings resurfaced. She tried to blame me for being too routine, too predictable. I asked her if that justified betraying our family. She had no answer. That night, I took our daughters to stay with Tony, needing time to think and plan my next move. My mind was made up. I couldn't stay with someone who'd used me as a backup plan for 12 years. But I wanted her to feel the same humiliation she'd put me through. Life was about to change dramatically for all of us, and I had a plan that would make sure she'd never forget the consequences of her choices. After staying at Tony's for a week, I returned home. She had filled the house with flowers and left apology notes everywhere. She hugged me, crying, begging for another chance. I pretended to consider it. "Maybe we can work this out," I said, though inside I felt nothing but anger. The next few weeks were a show. She tried everything, cooking my favorite meals, suggesting marriage counseling, planning family outings. But I knew she was still meeting Chris. My neighbor Mike, who worked near the coffee shop where they met, kept me updated. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, they'd meet when she was supposed to be at work. I focused on my daughters during this time. The older one, who was 10, sensed something was wrong. The younger one, only 7, just enjoyed having both parents trying extra hard to make her happy. I made sure to document everything, my wife's absences, the time she was too busy on her phone to help with homework, the days she skipped work to meet Chris. Our housekeeper, Sarah, who'd been with us for 5 years, became my unexpected ally. She told me how my wife would take long phone calls in the garden, how she'd come home looking guilty some days. Sarah had even overheard her making plans to meet Chris when she thought no one was around. One day, my younger daughter fell off her bike while my wife was supposed to be watching her. Instead, she was texting Chris. Our daughter ended up with a broken arm. At the hospital, when I confronted my wife about her negligence, She tried to turn it around on me, calling me an absent father. That's when I whispered in her ear that at least I wasn't cheating on her. The look of shock on her face was priceless. During our daughter's recovery, I played along with my wife's attempts to fix our marriage. She suggested we host a big family dinner to celebrate our daughter's recovery. All the relatives would be there, her parents, her sister, my family. It was the perfect opportunity for what I had planned. The dinner was set for a Sunday. That morning, she was extra nervous, probably because she'd met Chris the day before. She spent hours preparing food, arranging flowers, making everything perfect. Her father, the respected pharmacy owner who'd pressured her into marrying me, arrived first. He hugged her proudly, completely unaware of what his daughter had been up to. My wife kept giving me nervous looks throughout dinner. She must have noticed I was too calm, too relaxed. After the main course, before dessert, I stood up to make a toast. I have some special gifts tonight, I announced. Everyone smiled, expecting something nice. I handed her father an envelope first. This is something your daughter has been working on, I said. Inside were the photos of her with Chris, their messages, everything. His face turned from confusion to anger to disappointment. Then I handed my wife another envelope, divorce papers I'd had prepared for weeks. The room went silent. Her father, who had built his reputation over 30 years, was shaking with anger. Is this true? He demanded. My wife couldn't speak, just sat there crying. Her sister, who had always been jealous of her getting the pharmacy, couldn't hide her satisfaction. Her father stood up and said the words that destroyed her carefully built world. You'll sign these papers, and you'll no longer work at the pharmacy. I won't have my business associated with this scandal. Her mother tried to defend her, but her father wouldn't hear it. That night changed everything. The perfect life she'd built on lies crumbled in front of everyone she wanted to impress. As her father walked out, he told her she betrayed not just me, but the entire family's trust. After that dinner, things moved quickly. She signed the divorce papers the next day. Her father kept his word. She lost the pharmacy to her sister. Chris, who she thought would support her, stopped answering her calls once he realized she no longer had access to her father's money. The hardest part was telling our daughters. The older one understood more than she should have. She asked if this was why Mommy was always on her phone instead of playing with them. The younger one just wanted to know if she'd still see her mom. We agreed on weekend visits, but only with supervision after the bike accident. My wife moved into a small apartment across town. She got a job at another pharmacy, not as the owner but as an employee. Every time I saw her at our daughter's events, she looked different, less confident, less proud. The designer clothes were replaced with simple outfits. The expensive car was sold for something more practical. Some nights, when the girls were asleep, I'd think about our marriage. 12 years of memories, family vacations, birthday parties, quiet evenings at home. I wondered if any of it was real for her, or if she was just playing a role the whole time, waiting for something better to come along. Tony and Mike helped me through the worst days. They'd come over, watch sports with me, make sure I didn't spend too much time alone with my thoughts. Sarah, our housekeeper, stayed with us, helping maintain some normalcy for the girls. She became more like family than employee. My wife tried to apologize many times over the next few months. She sent letters explaining how she regretted everything, how she'd taken our life for granted. But her words meant nothing to me anymore. The woman I thought I knew never existed. She was just a character in a play, and the show was over. The girls adjusted better than I expected. Maybe they were too young to understand everything, or maybe kids are just more resilient than we think. They still saw their mother on weekends, but they started calling me first with their news, good grades, school events, friend drama. It hurt to see them trust her less, but I couldn't blame them. One year after the divorce, I ran into her at our older daughter's school play. She looked tired, older somehow. She tried to start a conversation about getting back together, saying she changed, that losing everything had taught her what really mattered. I just walked away. Some betrayals can't be fixed with apologies. I'm not angry anymore. The revenge at the family dinner satisfied that part of me that needed justice. Now I just feel sorry for her. Sorry that she wasted 12 years pretending to be someone she wasn't. Sorry that she threw away a good life for something temporary. The girls and I have our own routines now. We make pancakes every Sunday morning. We watch movies together on Friday nights. We're building new memories, just the three of us. Sometimes they ask about their mom, and I never say anything negative. They'll form their own opinions as they grow up. As for me, I'm doing okay. I still teach history, still grade papers late at night, still love my simple, predictable life. But now I know that being predictable isn't a flaw, it's being reliable, being someone your kids can count on. My wife wanted excitement, but she ended up with nothing. I kept my boring life, and somehow, that turned out to be everything I needed. People ask if I'll date again. Maybe someday. For now, I'm focused on my daughters and myself. Life isn't perfect, but it's honest. And after living with lies for so long, honest feels pretty good. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.